Welcome back, folks. Sheepdog Smokey here. I hope you have had a good start to your week. Unfortunately, where I am, this is the time of year when everything that I'm allergic to is coming into bloom. So I get about 2 or 3 weeks where I'm miserable, but I'm 43, I've learned to deal with it. What I wanted to talk about today is actually close to the idea for the series. It's not really anything going on today. It's historical reference. Now, granted, you're going to see this on t-shirts, hats, stickers, magnets, websites, as a hashtag, all of it. But it's the idea of 3%. You see, during the early days of the colony, of course, the colonists were British subjects. They had no army. They had no one to defend them other than those who were there, and they were defending from local threats or from criminals within their own colony. Literally just a police force. And the police force depended on the citizenry to defend their own homes. And it worked. In 1775, when the Stamp Act went into effect and the Boston Tea Party happened, the British Army was sent and told the colonists to hand over their firearms, and they resoundingly said no. Shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord. But the war that ensued involved 3% of the colonial population at the time, which, even if we say there was 1 million people living in the colonies, and that is an extremely liberal estimate, that's 30,000. I don't think there was that much, but that's an army of 30,000 or less. Granted, we did have allies with the French who did aid us, but it was mostly in training. If we look at that now, 3% of the U.S. population right now is about 600 million. Well, 1% of that would be 6 million. So you'd have an 18 million person militia. The reason that the Second Amendment was written how it is, and the reason the U.S. military was created the way it was, is to avoid the need for that. You see, in colonial times, soldiers in Britain swore their loyalty to the crown, not to Parliament, not to the Magna Carta, not to any document that laid out rights the citizens had. They were loyal to the king. If the king said, I don't like how people in, in South London are acting, if the king said, I don't like how people in Manchester are acting, the army quite literally could be dispatched at a whim by the king. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, National Guard in every state, all of them swear to the Constitution. And that was done very specifically to, one, prevent the likelihood of a need of a militia, much more than just guaranteeing rights in the Constitution. I mean, the Second Amendment mentions a militia. And that is very different from a military. The militia is a citizen-formed and citizen-run civilian group. It is not the military. If worse comes to worse and basically we end up in another civil war, I personally see the vast majority of the military walking off their post when ordered to open fire on American citizens who don't like the government simply saying these rights no longer exist. Because if they're told the Constitution is no longer valid, you now serve me, the vast majority are going to say, so my oath is over, so I'm leaving. It's just the way it is. We have other controls in place, the Posse Comitatus Act, the Insurrection Act, and so on. And those are there to require congressional approval for use of national military forces. It does not affect the National Guard. As we've seen, National Guard has been called up in several states already to deal with rioters and looters. I saw a couple of videos while going through my YouTube feed today about Posse Comitatus and about the Insurrection Act. And I cannot help but be amazed at how masterfully President Trump crawls inside the heads of the media and the Democratic National Committee and all of their members and just sits there spitting out buzzwords that make them lose their mind, go on TV, and prove their insanity. If he mentions Posse Comitatus, that means Congress must approve the use of national federal forces. When people flip out, he's going to use Posse Comitatus and send the military into your streets. They're wrong. Posse Comitatus requires congressional approval. If he submits anything to them referring to Posse Comitatus and basically says the United States is in a state of insurrection and we need to use Posse Comitatus and so on and so forth, it will be to get the Democrats to shoot it down to prove they don't care about the vast majority of American citizens. They've proven it for over 4 years now. It's a game for them. President Trump is very, very good at lobbing softballs into their court so that they can flip out, prove they do not care what he says. They're going to oppose anything and everything. I saw a report today from the World Health Organization that asymptomatic carriers are the extreme minority of those spreading COVID-19. It is amazing timing that right as the riots are starting to really pick up, there's no danger in people being around each other. It was a horrible thing. You had to stay home when people were marching for their First Amendment rights. But when people are rioting and burning cities to the ground, well, COVID-19 is not really that dangerous. There's another report that I've seen recently where a publication, and I'll find the link somewhere and probably do a video on it, but someone has retracted a story that claimed hydroxychloroquine is dangerous. Hydroxychloroquine has been used for decades to treat multiple things, but because it is so effective and it would basically negate the need for destroying our economy and forcing people to do what the Democrats want, suddenly it's not to be allowed. But as more and more doctors are proving it is not dangerous, all these left-wing journalists are having to retract their stories and basically say, I did what I was told, don't sue me, please. We're headed for something big. And that's what was seen 240 odd years ago. And I firmly believe that more than 3% of Americans today would stand and oppose a tyrant government. I've said many times, I will live, fight, and die on my feet before I bow to a tyrant. And I will. And if it gets recorded on video, the tagline will be that a white supremacist, Nazi, bigot, racist, atheist, religious zealot, transphobe, homophobe, Islamophobe, and all the other tag words attacked police as they broke down his door and demanded he surrender to unconstitutional laws. Or you'll see the military standing with the citizenry, and it will be buzzword after buzzword after buzzword all over the news. The very people now demanding that police be disbanded are the ones who have private security. They're not worried about their home or their business because they pay people who are loyal to them. And if the police go away, they're still protected. And if it happens, you will see that 3% rise up again. It has been proven throughout history that a tyrant government does not last long. It just can't. Because when people see the very people living a life of luxury, as they tell everyone, oh no, you need to just buckle down and keep working, and We will make sure you have enough to eat to keep you working while they're eating steak and lobster and drinking wine and gallivanting all over the globe. When people start to see this, they'll realize that the AOCs and Schumers and Pelosi's and Bookers and Harris's and the rest do not care one whit about you or me. They care only about power, stealing as much of it as they can and holding on to it. As they rant and rail that you need to give up your guns, they're guarded by men with automatic weapons. As they rant and rail that taxes are too high or too low and need to be raised, they use every loophole in the book to make sure they pay as little as possible. As they demand you not be treated with certain drugs, they're treated with that very drug. Amy Klobuchar, who was adamantly against President Trump even talking about hydroxychloroquine, later admitted it saved her husband's life. It is hypocrisy, plain and simple. And just as happened in the 1770s, more than 3% of people see it, recognize it, and realize it's dangerous. The only thing that's going to hold any of them back is physical ability. And I bet you we'll have people who are not quite as fast, but just as good on the other parts of what's needed. I guess only time will tell exactly how bad it's going to get and what it's going to take to turn it around. I've bounced all over the place. Let me know what you think. As always, be civil. We're here to discuss, dissent, and debate, not scream and yell like toddlers. Make sure, please, to like and share the video so that we expand the conversation, and so the algorithm knows that you like watching this type of content. Please remember also to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're aware of all new content, and so you're part of the giveaway at 500, 1,000, and 1,500 subscribers. Until next time, have a wonderful day.